Hello, and welcome back to The Creatives, everybody. I'll be your host, Ramsey, today, joined by none other than Mr. Rémi Thériault, pronounced like Ontario, but spelt a lot differently. Rémi is an awesome dude who is very creative, in my opinion. We connected over Instagram through the wonderful world of social media, and I was very intrigued by the work that I saw, and I invited him to the show, and I'm happy that you're here, man. Thanks for being here.
I'm happy to be here, too.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. For the first time in a long time, it's not snowing while we record. It's actually sunny, and it's daytime.
It's really nice. It's good. I tend to be, the sun makes me feel more creative.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Is it just like the warmth or the light or both?
Yeah, all of it. It's just like a bit of warmth. I like all seasons. Like, I'm not a person that hates any season or whatever, but I think the sun, I think there's a thing like you're supposed to, in the morning, just stand outside, close your eyes, and have like the sun in your face or whatever.
Absolutely.
It just feels better.
It's really good for you. It kicks things in motion, like chemically in your brain. I don't know the exact science behind it, but I know it's really good for you.
Yeah, and it gives you a reason to wear sunglasses, right? So
Yeah.
you just look cooler.
You look cool, and then you feel cool, and then you do cool things. So speaking of cool things, Rémi has a lot of cool things from what I could gather. He is a gallery artist, a director, and an award-winning photographer. But most importantly, he's a visual storyteller, and I think that is something that is really interesting, how to tell stories with just visual, with no words. And I love that because I find creativity is one of those things where it's more than just a visual experience. It can be an emotional, it can be an auditory, and I just like, unique approaches to doing things, which is why I kind of started this show. This is, I'll tell you a bit about the show before we get into it. It's a bit of a side project. I was starting to meet a lot of cool people along my journey doing video production. So I do a lot of commercial video production and drone work. And I was meeting all these people, and I'm, getting through, I'm growing as a creator, as an operator, all this stuff. And I'm just like, no one knows about these people. Like they're all over the place. Everyone knows everyone, but outside of the bubble of creatives and people in the industry and around the industry, no one knows who these people are. And then everyone just labels Ottawa as like, it's a boring city. Ottawa sucks, but it's like the capital of the second largest country in the world. And I think the people here, can hold Ottawa to a high standard because we do really, really cool stuff, and we have a really, really cool city. So part of this show was just to explore and experiment with lighting, with audio, and we're on episode 13 now.
I think it's great. I told you when we were off air, and I'll say it on air too.
Yeah.
I think it's great what you're doing. I think the quality of the audio and just putting it out and have good quality stuff shows to what you're saying. Ottawa can do some great stuff if people just go out there and do it, which is why I wanted to come here. I was like, oh, this is cool. I was like, hope he asked me.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then now my friend Mike, so Mike was on episode 10. Now he's launched his own podcast, and he wants me to come on episode 10 on his podcast. So like full circle, but it's just cool how just like one thing can snowball into, hundreds of other things.
That's my whole career.
That's your whole career.
Yeah. Snowballing. Just the whole thing.
So if I understand correctly, you've been in this, industry of visual storytelling for 15 years now?
Yeah, roughly. Started late to probably most people, but yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll get into that kind of the origins of that. Before we get into this, I just want to thank you, the listener, for tuning into these podcasts. It's available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And if there's anywhere else that you would like to see it in terms of like streaming platforms, just let us know in the comments or send us an email. All our contact info will be down below. Big shout out to Midnight Hour Studios, which is where we're recording today. Jen and Nick have created this beautiful space in the heart of Ottawa for people to use and create, and it's been an excellent place to host the show. And I'm thinking when we hit episode 20, I want to kind of invite everyone who's been on the show and a +1, like a +1 creative +1, so we can all just kind of hang out one day. Maybe when it gets warmer, we could have the door open and just all kind of mix together and do rapid fire podcasts, like 5-minute episodes.
I like the +1 creator. Like it can't just be like your significant other. You got to bring somebody in.
Unless they're a creator.
Yeah. But that's a great idea.
Yeah. I think it'll be really fun. I'm just imagining it. It's like the ultimate worlds colliding of just all these people. It's just I just see like space rocks crashing into each other, but it's just people talking about cool stuff. So Midnight Hour Studios has given us, or given you actually, 25% off your first booking using discount code TheCreatives. All that info will be down in the description box below. And without further ado, we're going to get into this awesome episode. We're going to learn about Rémi and his career and some of the awesome stuff he's done, ask him a couple fun questions, and we're just going to explore. We're going to explore creativity through one conversation after the other. We're going to continue to explore creativity and see what it means and see how, we are all more alike than we are different. So, Rémi, what does it mean to be creative? What to you, what does creativity mean?
Not my first answer that popped into my head is not being weird, not being normal. It's like I always like that expression of like being weird or not being normal, of just doing things differently. Yeah. I think it's anything from cooking to playing to anything you can be creative. Yeah. I think definitely something that I try to bring in to my everyday life is just trying to do things differently from my routine. Some stuff I'm super attached to routine, but sometimes I try to do things differently to just make sure the brain keeps going. Yeah.
I like you said playing creatively. Something I feel that's like a bit lost. As you grow older and become an adult, that idea of play is like, we usually tend to do things that are like goal driven or have to have some sort of outcome. But I like that idea of just playing with no expectation, like doing something absolutely silly just for the fun of it. Is that what you mean by playing?
Yeah, totally. And it's something that we do in the studio quite a bit where we'll just, sometimes it's hard. We're so busy as a studio that we don't have a lot of playtime, but summertime we have a bit more where we'll just do shoots where trying to figure something out. We did a whole shoot. It took us a year to figure out how to shoot this. It's on the website and the Instagram. There's like cocktails with cannabis cocktails, and the whole thing is like yellow and it's shot on a mirror. It took us a year to figure out, like, just to nail down the lighting. Now we're not practicing that like every day. And
a year? Like, would you leave it set up?
No, it's just like in the back of my head for a year, right? From like having an idea of like, I want to do this. I want to shoot on a mirror where I want to have like these type of shadows, these type of lights.
That's really cool.
And then playing with it. We might have just like played with it for 4 times, like throughout the year, where it's always in the back of my head and we keep talking, and I keep talking about it to my team, but then until like nailing it and being like, okay, we got to shoot, we got to nail it. And we've done it a couple times. Yeah. But it was good. And then winning a bunch of like international awards for that pick is also bonus. But, we tried to put playtime. It's really hard to schedule, but hopefully we get better at it in the next couple of years.
That's really cool. It's kind of like this podcast was an idea in my head for a while, like 6 months, maybe more, until it actually materialized on a couch, right, actually just over there. And then it just snowballed into this conversation. It's cool. But.
Well, and I mean, that's the thing too. And I think a lot of people wait for the perfect timing. There's like perfect timing never exists. No. If it's like my career, any decision I take in life, you just got to start. And it's like, it might not be perfect or pretty or, interesting at the start, but you never know what it's going to give later on, right?
That's really cool. And you mentioned studio. So I kind of want to, for the listeners, so Rémi is the founder of House of Common Studio, which is an Ottawa-based studio that you do editorial, photo, video, all sorts of work. Can you tell me a little bit about House of Common, kind of how it came to be and what it is now?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into origin story before. Let's say I've been in photography for 15 years, and I hit a point where just like working under my name was boring.
Okay, as like a freelancer?
Yeah, just like, doing the same type of work I was doing now, but it was just me. It's just like RémiThériault.com, whatever. It's like doing my own thing. I got this studio 9 years ago now in April, which is like really, and it was just, House of Common came of House of Common Interests or Common People. And the people I shared it with, I just wanted a space to play. Like it was really back to the play. It was just a space to play. Nobody had studios back then. And on the weekends, they ran music shows. That's really cool. So I'd have it during the week, and then on the weekends, my partners ran music shows. Kind of ran like that for like 5 years. And then when I moved, I went to BC for 2 years. Okay. And then came back. And then I didn't want my studio to smell like beer on Monday morning.
Is that what would happen? It would just get rowdy all weekend?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, but it's just like,
It's inevitable.
yeah,
People
you're going to
drinking on
have
a
like,
Saturday night.
you're going to have 60 people in your studio using the washroom and doing whatever. It's just like, and then you have like all this expensive gear, right? So the model just didn't work, and the partners wanted to open their own space to get a liquor license and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it was just a happy split. And that point where House of Common already existed, already had the logo, already had all of this.
Was it your brand? You were
Yeah.
operating as House of Common?
Yeah, but it was just like a shared space. It wasn't my brand. But then I decided, when the music people left, I decided to just take it over.
Okay.
And I just decided, I hired staff and decided I was going to take a leap. I just hired staff, all my logo, got my producer, Nadine, just kind of put all my ideas down.
That's cool.
Like, I'm really good at getting ideas to 80%, and I like to have staff to get like push that extra 20%. And then Nadine just like helped do everything. I've never did marketing before she was hired.
Wow.
And then the past 3 years, there's a lot to do with like the team that we've built together, allowed to create what the studio is now with staff, part-time staff. We're posting in the next couple of weeks. We're hiring like another producer to the staff and stuff. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's been like a huge undertaking. So, you know, just me being myself to the studio was also give better ownership, or better kind of like fierté. I just have the word in French.
Confidence?
Confident, just being proud. Being proud for my
yeah,
staff,
yeah.
dude. It's like more fun to work for a company than some dude, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
so that was part of it too. I just wanted like my staff to have pride and to grow within the business versus like wanting their name on the headline and stuff. So that's all part of our business model.
Was that scary at first when you're like going out there and like, you know, making the decision to hire producers and people to distribute content and like building out a team? Was that scary? Because you're like, I don't know if I can sustain these people's salaries or whatever it would be.
The first hire was like, I had Nadine's the third producer I hired. So I hired a full-time producer. It then didn't work out. And then I hired a part-time producer that was pretty good. And then Nadine came with a total different background. She had Girl From Away. She had a t-shirt business.
That's cool.
A lot of experience. So she knew branding. She knew all that, kind of spoke that language. But yeah, it's scary when you're like, it's a lot of money. You know, you got like 2 full-time employees, COVID, all that stuff. Like, you got to pay those people. But I was quite busy. And then when I hired Nadine, I had made a bunch of mistakes in the past that I was better capable of like, and I still make mistakes on a daily basis, but maybe not daily, but on a monthly basis but it was easier. Like, I had to learn with a producer that they're not going to do everything.
No.
Like with Nadine, I'm better with numbers. I'm just better at math. And it's like that side of things. I'm just better to like take care of that versus before I was just like, my producer should do everything.
Yeah.
I'm just going to like, I was like, it doesn't work that way. There's just like, we need to share the plate, and everybody kind of has their expertise and everybody help each other out.
That's really cool. So how did you then end up in this field of with the camera in your hand and telling stories with visual pictures? Did it start when you were a kid, or was it later?
I always like telling stories. I was like only child, and I think a lot of only childs, they're just like to be out in public because they're like, used to being alone, and they're used to being around adults, so they chat really easily with other people. My girlfriend moved in this summer with her 10-year-old son, and I see like a lot of me in him, of just being an only child, of like liking to telling stories. But yeah, I'm from Prince Edward Island, of like a village of 300 people, and if the only way you're going to be an artist or creative is playing violin, and I'm like, I didn't like the fiddle. And it was like, it's just not me. That's why, and that's how I ended up in Ottawa. I just like went to university and just like, I needed to move. I needed a bigger city.
You came here for school?
Yeah,
initially?
at 18. Yeah,
Where'd
university.
you go?
Ottawa U, and graduated after 5 years in teachers college.
Nice.
Because plan B, no idea what I wanted to do with my life.
You were just going to school as something?
Just going to school. I was kind of book smart, so it was like half of school was paid for scholarships and shit. So I was like, I'm gonna take this free ride. Yeah. And then picked up a camera between that time. Like at some point I picked up an old film camera and just started playing. And then when I finished school, I moved back home for a year to like live with my parents, pay bills, and
back to the village?
back. No, in Charlottetown, luckily.
Okay. That's
So,
like, is that the capital?
Charlottetown's the capital. It's like
Charlottetown,
40,000.
Okay.
It's still pretty small.
Is it
but
metropolitan city over there? I've never been to that far East Coast Canada.
summer in Charlottetown is great. Winter sucks. There's nothing in PI in the wintertime. No, it's just like,
Just work and sleep.
yeah, a lot of like, I won't get into it, but it's just like,
Yeah.
it's small town. Like everybody drinks. That's all they do for hobbies. That's why I got out of there. Like I wasn't big into drinking when I was in high school, and just like guys would just fight and drink on the weekend. Like I played hockey. I fit in okay with everybody.
Yeah.
I'm just like doing my thing. And I'm like, I just want to go to Ottawa and know somebody else that knows Nirvana.
Yeah. It's pretty cool because like on the other hand, people from Ottawa are always like, I want to leave. It's always green, grass always green on the other side. In that case, I totally understand the want to kind of get out of there.
Yeah. And Ottawa's a nice town for somebody from the East Coast. There's a lot of East Coasters because it's not too big, and it's still like people are super friendly here. Like the East Coast, like
Yeah.
if it's other photographers, like people help each other out a lot in the city, which is great.
I love Ottawa. I love Ottawa for that because it's everyone, you know, what Jen said last episode, 2 degrees of separation. We're all very connected, and it's a good thing when you do good things and you communicate well with people and you leave a good impression. When you do bad things, it's terrible because that word will travel really fast. But it is cool because in my business, at least, I haven't really had to spend money on marketing. It's just been like, do good work, offer the best service I can, and give the client as much as I can give them for what they're paying. And it just snowballs. It's like a word of mouth. And that's why I love this city.
It's definitely like that for me when I started. It was just, I just gone out. We'd go out all the time. I'd go out to all the art shows, all music shows. I was just out taking photos a lot.
Yeah.
And when I talk to like high schools and colleges, like what you just said is what I tell schools. I'm like, oh, it's got the kids are asking me like, how do you make money? How do you make money?
Yeah.
I'm like, don't be a jerk and don't suck. Like that's, I'm like thinking of putting that on the t-shirt. It's like,
Don't be a jerk and don't suck.
I mean, you can make money not sucking and being a good photographer. You can make money not being a jerk and being a decent. If you do both, if you don't suck and you're not a jerk, it's like that's golden. That's the golden rule. Yeah.
As long as you don't, as long as you're not like have unrealistic expectations. I find the biggest killer to like making it like a possibility in this industry is wanting too much, wanting too many luxuries, and wanting to indulge in whatever money you come in. Like I find that is the killer to the growth, or at least what I've seen in my experience. I've been playing with cameras for maybe like 8 to 10 years now, but really taking it seriously for like 3 years. And I just find if you keep putting back what you get, and it just keeps growing slowly, it's like I've
always keep royalty checks on like my business, and like some teacher in school told me financially, like you keep a third of your money for like retirement or savings, whatever, a third of your money on gear, and a third of your money on living expenses. Like that's how you should model your company, of like thirds of like a third to your business, third on you, third for savings. And I haven't followed that math, but I've always been good at like saving money. I was like 10 years old when I had my first job. I did piggy banks shaped like potatoes.
You made them?
Yeah.
Out of potatoes?
No, out of ceramics. My dad did ceramics.
Okay, I was gonna say, how'd you have access to the tools?
My dad had ceramics, but I'm from Prince Edward Island, right?
Yeah.
So like PI potatoes.
Yeah.
So I'm making these banks at 10 years old, learning how to sell them to like the public, and how my dad was like, you can't sit down, you got to stand up, look people in the eyes, and like all this stuff. As a 10-year-old, I was like, okay, but making like $500 a summer, like selling these things and just keeping money. That
is crazy.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good advice. I find it's always cool to have that instilled as a kid, like the I guess the entrepreneurial spirit, if you will, of how to transact. It's such a valuable skill because like all you're doing in life is selling yourself and your skills and your tools and service and whatever it is.
Yeah, and like you said, right, and being like reality checks and like keeping in balance of like. When is it time to buy a new camera? I only buy a new camera if money's in the bank. Like I've never bought anything on credit or anything. I'm just like, I like to to save my money, because you never know when's gonna COVID's gonna happen or whatever's gonna happen. At least like I'm not stressed.
So you don't use credit card?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I pay them off. You don't borrow a bunch of money to go buy hefty pieces of gear.
No, I like my points.
Yeah, the points are crazy, man. Get free trips and stuff. That's awesome. So you kind of started playing with art, I guess. Like
So my start,
gallery artist.
Yeah, I mean my start, I guess, jumping the gun, but my start is I photograph bands. I love music as a kid. We travel a lot.
Do you play any music, or do you
no?
just,
I suck.
Okay, that's fine.
I suck. I can't sing. If you've ever been to karaoke with me, you just know I'm like.
You have a good voice. I feel like you'd be good at some opera stuff.
No. Maybe radio is like late night jazz channel, maybe. But so I just photograph bands like all the time, and then would email the bands like the photos, right, and be like. Eventually, this band was like, "Hey, can you do a promo photo for us?" I'm like, "Sure." So that was like my first gig, was like a band shoot. And then
cool. In Ottawa, was it?
It was
local?
back in PEI when I was like
okay.
in that in between time between university and moving back here. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I got started, was just doing bands, and then shooting bands. They're not organized. So you're like learning a lot of skills shooting bands. There's like people show up. Half of the band shoots I would do, they wore my clothes. Like, because they
would
just
give them your clothes?
Yeah.
You're like, what are you wearing?
Because you'd have like, you look like Christmas. One guy's wearing red, the other guy's wearing green. Like, let's do something. Like everybody wearing red or something, or they're all shot in my backyard. Or
like dedication. You got Remy like shirtless, taking the photo with one sock on.
No, I don't think we went that far, but I would be surprised if I had to. I'd definitely given rings to models for whatever occasions, or that's always part of it. But that's kind of how it started. It was just like shooting bands, shooting people was kind of what I like. I like to entertain. I wanted to be a school teacher. Like I like being in charge, and I like kind of that stuff. And then it was like bands to magazines, to then magazines meeting people that had businesses or restaurants, and that just catered through shooting events to 5 years of just doing that and just keep pushing myself, keep being creative. Like I remember once I paid for my buddy's Blues Fest ticket. We went to see Kiss, like the rock band Kiss, just to shoot Kiss fans. Wow. Like we just shot, so paid like $200 for the day, right? Give them a ticket, just shot Kiss fans, just for the shits of it. Like sure we listened to the show, but it was like, and just to get cool photos. And then those photos got published in a magazine. People talked about those photos for like 3 years. This is like 15 years ago. But it was like that landed like magazine jobs and stuff, to now we do international campaigns for clients and stuff, right? Where really they're just like kind of like baby steps all the way through. And as I got older, I always like managing and organizing. And my mom is like the best boss I've ever had. And so always took up on that. Like as a family, we're boring. We talk about business and stuff. My parents aren't big business people. They're just like, my mom drives a Honda Accord or something, like a grown up. It wasn't like we're fancy or anything, but we just like to talk about that type of stuff. So getting into running campaigns and stuff just kind of became natural.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. Were you shooting these like on digital or film? Just got
both. Starting off both. Yeah, it was definitely both. And then there was a moment I bought a digital camera because I got hired by the East Coast Music Awards.
Wow.
So they needed event, like a gala type of thing. It's like the Junos just for the East Coast.
That's cool. Yeah.
So I needed a digital camera just to do. And then the reason I had this moment after that, I met with the biggest photographer in Prince Edward Island. I showed him, I had a website, everything. I haven't gone to school yet. And I was like, showed him, I'm like 25 at the time, just starting photography. I'm like, do I suck? He's like, you don't suck. I was like, yes. And then,
Am I a jerk?
I didn't ask him that question. But he asked me, he's like, do you want to photograph weddings and babies? I'm like, nah. He's like, get off the island.
Oh, that's what he told you?
Yeah, it was straight up.
Because that's pretty much all you got.
Yeah, he's like, if you don't, so I applied to Dawson, I applied to Ryerson, and then Algonquin. And it happened that a friend of mine, he's like, hey, my buddy Aaron Mackenzie Fraser is looking for a roommate. He's a photographer. He was like, at the time, this is 15 years ago, he's like now in Halifax, great dude. He's like the photographer in town. He was like the coolest photographer.
He was here though in Ottawa?
He was here in Ottawa, and he was looking for a roommate.
Wow.
And I was like,
this is perfect.
Yeah. I was like 25. He might have been like 28. So I moved in with him. So for a full year, all I did was like go to school. And that night we would just like, we'd do DJ battles and just Photoshop. And then and then he introduced me to, Ottawa was more organized on the photography side. There was like organizations and stuff. So I just met everybody.
It's like pre-social media distribution.
Pre-social media. Facebook was just starting, but I wasn't on it.
So there's much different avenues at that time.
You had to go. Yeah, exactly. So I just was assisting everybody. And I was like 25 getting into it. So I'm like, I better don't suck. Like the don't suck thing came in when I started Algonquin College. I started Algonquin just to learn how to Photoshop. You asked, like, I didn't know too much about digital. But I went to Algonquin, was like, if I'm not top 5.
You went to Algonquin for Photoshop?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
As photography, like, because I was already getting jobs.
There wasn't like people on YouTube making videos about how to use Photoshop. Because I learned everything from YouTube. A lot of what I learned, YouTube and other people. But
I mean, I wanted to learn the darkroom. They cut it out. But I was like, I was already working in photography. And I was like, in school, I was bored. I was just way bored. There's one teacher.
What did you study?
Photography.
Oh, you did study photography.
But it was just like to learn how to do the Photoshop part.
For the one
No, I did 2 years, a full 2 years of like Algonquin.
That's really
But the whole time was like,
about history and stuff. And
yeah, that was good. The history class, I kind of knew it. That like, I'm really a big thinker of like knowing the past, like knowing why certain things, like trends now, where they come up. Like,
do you like connecting past to present and then look towards future and stuff?
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I like if it's music or anything, like I like listening to new music, but I like to know where it came up. Like the new Elvis movie, like they show all the like the black music, all the southern music that like some people say he stole, like that came up. Like that's the stuff I like. I like to go deep and figure out like what are the roots, what are to the trends and stuff. And it's also where I get a bunch of my ideas is just like try to dig deep and see how we could make it different now.
That's really cool.
So, yeah. Anyways, so living with that guy was like the biggest. And then, so we had fun, we partied, and then he moved to Halifax. And that was like a huge door opening for me because I was in school.
Because he was out of the city, right?
He was out of the city. Yeah. Well, not that there wasn't any more competition, but there was just a gap from like 50 to 40 that of photographers. There's just kind of that gap there in the city. And I was kind of 26 at the time, so kind of had my shit together. So that was kind of a good platform to get me in the scene.
That is cool. I'm 26 right now. It's interesting to hear what you were doing at 26.
And I mean, my Marin Devine, who's like my lead at the studio, she's like 23, right? And she like stresses about the future and stuff. I was like, I didn't have a camera at 23. Like, you had a job at 16 working photography. She's been with me for 5 years now. And I'm like, you're okay.
Yeah, it's cool. It's always, I find that perspective's important. And that's part of the reason why I'm very much enjoying these conversations, because I'm getting a lot of perspective on maybe how much harder it was for you to make it in this industry, like without the digital mediums and channels of distributing what you're doing. And you can go online and blast, hey, I just did something really cool, and 1,000 people will see it. But back then it's like you have to put in literal legwork to print stuff and distribute it manually, right? Is that what you were doing? Like, were you going around and printing most of your work at the time?
No, we just started doing that now. Like I said, I think the big thing on what you're saying about social media is like, I just got out public. Like I was living downtown, which is why like having the studio where we are works for us. Like I go get coffee. I could bring coffee from home. It'd be cheaper. But every time I go get coffee, I see a client.
You talk.
I chat. And it's just like you see somebody, you bump into someone, right?
I know what so the $4 coffee is worth. That conversation could be worth a lot more long term, right?
Exactly.
That's
so cool. Like the first 10 years was just going out. And I was shooting bands, right? So I had to go to all the shows. Like I had to go there, kind of meet the people. I wanted to be the go-to guy. And then I was like the go-to guy to do band promos and do all that type of stuff, right? And then doing other events and then just doing more official portraits or whatever. But it was like just nonstop. I just worked like morning. Let's say I worked in a bar for a while to like getting started. I definitely always had a plan B or a fallback. So I worked in a bar for like a year just to make money.
Yeah.
And that was like nights and weekends. So I had my like free days to assist photography and stuff.
That's cool.
And then, but I would just like, what was I going to say? I would just go out. Like I'd go a typical job of like 9 to 5. I'd get home. I'd start retouching. And then at like 9 p.m. I'd have a couple of beers, and then at night, like I was young, I'd go party, and then just rotate, right? Like just keep going. Like it would just not stop.
Sound like you enjoyed it. Otherwise you wouldn't have done it, right? Like,
yeah, it was fun. I still this is horrible to say, but it was like, I remember in college, there was like going to bed. It was like, all I would think about would be photography. I just wouldn't want to win the Stanley Cup anymore or do anything crazy like that. Like all I wanted to do was photography, and I'd go to bed or wake, and last thing I think about at night, first thing in the morning. That's and I still cool. Now I'm like, sure, I'll be pickier when I'm 50 or 60, but it's like I'll always take photos.
That's cool. It's a good testament to like having that fiery passion inside. If you just go for it, like it'll work.
Oh, I get cranky. I get cranky if I'm not taking photos for like a week.
Really?
Oh yeah, I'm cranky. That's I know really it. Cool.
I want to talk about a bit in a sec how you take photos for work and how you do it for fun. And when you got here, I found out that we both shoot on a pretty neat old 35mm camera.
Yours is in better condition than
the
mine. The
Olympus Mu2, spelled MJU2.
Yeah, you got no duct tape.
I want to know about. I'll tell you about mine, and you tell me about yours.
Sure.
So this was my mom's. This was our family camera. So my parents always had cameras around. We weren't professionals, but they just liked to document. They had camcorders. They had a.
Is that how you got started? They're just cameras around.
They were just around. Like my grandfather used to love taking photos, so he would always get cameras for my mom and her sisters when they were kids, and then. My mom was around it. She wasn't a pro or anything, but she was acquainted with the process of shooting film. And then as my sister and I were born, they would always keep cameras in the house, and they progressively went to digital and like the Sony CyberShot, point and shoots. And then they kind of stopped once iPhones became mainstream. That's when they stopped buying cameras. But my passion kind of simmered down a bit because I was figuring out life. I was young, high school, went to university for economics, so like completely unrelated. Playing with cameras on the side, but fast forward to now, I do video production. I find shooting film is like a fresh air. It's a breath of fresh air because I'm a very like tactile influenced person. I love touching stuff. I love feeling things, and the process of shooting film was really cool. So I bought a Canon 8E1, and then about a year or two after that, I found we were cleaning out our basement, and I found this camera, and nice. I was like, "Holy crap, Mom! Like this."
They're worth like $200-$300. Like,
dude, more. They're worth like $900 on Etsy. Like I was looking up because I wanted to figure out what kind of battery it takes. It's a really weird one.
Yes.
And I'm seeing them on eBay
and Etsy.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the story of this Olympus Mu2. Was our family's point and shoot that sat in a box for maybe 12 to 15 years.
Yeah.
And now I use it regularly, like all the time, and. All the photos that are shot on this, everyone who's in them is just like, wow. My sister always says, you make it look like it was a much cooler night than it actually was. But I'd like to hear about yours. Yours seems like it's been through a lot.
Yeah, there's like, the screen doesn't work. So, I mean, part of it, I've always had film cameras and stuff, like this in particular.
Yeah.
Like you said, I find shooting film is romantic still.
Nice.
For me, it's like you just don't know what you're going to get. Yeah. And I have a lot of film cameras where, I was in Europe using a 4x5, lugging this like 40-pound camera on my back for 2 weeks.
Is that the medium format or is that big?
Large. It's 4x5, yeah. Wow. So you're like, you got to put the thing on top of your head, like the...
Oh my goodness.
To look in it, like the cartoons, right?
I've never even seen one of those in real life.
Yeah, mine is from the 60s.
That's really cool.
The show I did at Ottawa Art Gallery in 2014, the prints are like 40 inches. So they're beautiful. Like you print on 4x5, you can just print that big. Mm-hmm. Like it's gorgeous. But yeah, it's like the Hasselblad, depending on what I want to do. Medium format's great. But then I just like having something on me. And in 2013, 2012 to 2015, I was just in the States 6 months of the year. Mm-hmm. I was just working in the States, traveling all the time, and just like, the work was okay, but I just needed, so I had a camera just always on me to take photos of stuff because I was in random, like Arkansas, small town. Applebee's is the only restaurant around. Like Ohio, there's like some tiny cities. I'm from tiny city, but I just like photographed all of it.
That's really
with cool. That. And then with the motorcycles, riding my motorbike, like I can open it one-handed. This one's stiffer, but I can ride the motorbike.
Can I hold yours?
Yeah.
Here, you have a feel of put a little bit less beat up.
Oh,
this
God.
Is so cool.
But I'd have a shirt pocket. I'd put it in my shirt pocket like this.
Yeah.
So that I could take photos while I was riding my motorbike.
Yeah. Like driving by, like slow down, take a pic, or even
well,
just
because we do
selfies.
rides. Like I did a lot of rides. I did Detroit. Like I kind of hung out for a weekend with a semi-gang for a magazine. Like ended
Taking
up
photos.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
this was
Yeah, I had a
camera?
Mamiya 7 also. I had 2 cameras, like portraits and stuff. But yeah, we were like out in Detroit for a magazine, and somehow I split up with the magazine editor, brought me down there. So I'm riding a motorcycle from 1978, like an old bike. I was the only guy with a Japanese bike. Everybody had Harleys
What kind
down
of bike
there.
were you riding?
CB750.
Honda.
Yeah.
That's CB750F. Did you cafe racer it? That's literally my dream bike. My mom will not let me get a bike for as long as she's on this earth.
There's a certain, it took me probably till 30 where my mom kind of was like, do you need money? Do you need mommy? And I was like, I'm not going to say this because she's probably going to watch it, but I'm not going to repeat what exactly I told her, but I'm like, I'm fine. Like, stop asking me about money. Like, there's a certain point where a couple moments where I'm like, I wanted to be treated as an equal, not as her son. I mean, she's still my mom and still like gives me awesome birthday gifts and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
But that was the thing where I'm like, I get a bunch of tattoos now and I ride motorcycles. Like,
cool, mom. That's so cool.
And I'm
dude.
like, you just got to deal with it.
Do you have a bike currently?
I have 2. I have a old Harley that my buddy helped me build, and I just bought a new one because I have a girlfriend and the kid and the 10-year-old. My Harley has an open chain and stuff, and the kid moves around, so
Risky.
It risky.
Chop your leg right open.
Yeah,
So you bought a newer bike
Yeah,
that's a bit more friendly for passengers?
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So
I love motorbikes so much.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing is just do the course. You do the weekend course just to get the license.
Yeah.
It's like, just to see if you like it.
And then, we're browsing Facebook Marketplace at 1 a.m. and, there's a good deal on a bike.
Facebook Marketplace. I spend more time there than Instagram for sure.
And they actually have like a pretty good algorithm too, because it recommends ads based on what you search. That's such an underrated thing. Like the car that's parked outside, I bought that thing like 2 weeks ago. It was 1 a.m. and it just popped up and I was like, this is the exact car I've been looking for. Boom, done.
Yeah, I definitely have that's my hobby, is trying to find deals on Marketplace. I just love finding, I'll look for stuff for like months. And if I like snag something at like half the price of new, it's just like, I succeeded in life.
That's unreal. There's also a thing called like GC surplus.
Yeah, my buddy's huge on that.
You can find some cool stuff on that, like government surplus stuff. You got to dig pretty deep to find that stuff. But I want to kind of circle back to the Olympus. So you went through the States shooting on this camera.
Yeah, and done a couple of series, shot magazine, and the funny
Did you
thing.
buy it new? At the time?
No.
Okay.
This is like my 4th one because I keep breaking
Seriously?
them.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow,
I keep dropping.
You have to buy a couple more because they're gonna get more expensive.
Well, this one costs $200 and it's on its last leg. And I have a bunch at the house, so I have to test them to see which one work.
Okay,
But like I'd go on all these bike tours, like in the Detroit and stuff. There'd be like 40 bikers. So we'd all bike, like we were in Detroit just ripping on the road. Like at one point we just split all the cars on the yellow line. Like just all of us. There's 20 of us just all on the yellow line, just like.
That's so cool.
So then it's like, you're doing that shit. You want to take photos, right? Like, but you're riding like fast and you got to be able to quickly do it. And I just like don't got time for like a small Sony point shoot, whatever.
Yeah,
So,
or even an SLR film camera. Like you can't even.
No, you just need something automatic, right? So that kind of became a big part of it. And then coming back here was funny. Well, just all through the time, like I did this for the past 10 years, but I'd get like clients just loving that work, right? Like I'm just doing that for fun, but that work's getting the most attention of anything else on my website. Then I get back, meet a client, and I was like, oh, cool, what are we doing? They're like, oh, we just want photos of the staff, working in the office, looking at laptops and stuff. Completely different from what I just did. But like I've been being told, like, they're like, we like your range. Like they like that I can do a LinkedIn photo. They like that I can do a point and shoot film photo with somebody shotgunning a beer, right? Like I bring all those flavors to the scene. I've like, if I'd be a DJ, like I could do heavy metal or I could do country music. Like I can just like bring it out, and that's a
Good
big
comparison.
big part. It is the line I tell clients when I'm like,
yeah,
it's like, what do you want? And just trying to use, because I'm like,
would you say the corporate like laptop demonstration is the country and the heavy metal is the bikes on the road?
Probably. That's probably a good. I use punk rock as like trying to describe us sometimes, of
That's
just
really cool.
wanting to do things differently is like a big part. I just mainly doing things differently isn't doing things differently for just being different, but it's more like what makes you special. Like bringing this back to this podcast and like all this creatives, like a lot of things that I say is like, what makes you special compared to somebody else? Like if you're working in the studio or if you're working somewhere, like what makes you different? Why should somebody hire you over somebody else? And that's something that's like huge into how we cater ourselves on set with the clients, but also with like what we produce, what we do. If I find my work is boring for 2 months, I got nothing to post on Instagram, we're gonna do something cool. Like we'll factor in, or we'll do something to kind of spruce it up. Just for spark. And not just for social, just for me, because I get bored and I'm gonna get like lame. So
it's easy to get kind of lost in that, like, you know, just grinding. You're doing the work because you are running a business at the same time, and you have to, you know, maintain that and work on that. But that's cool. You say, you kind of, if it's like 2 months go by, you just kind of like, hey, need to
gotta like
mix it up, like shake it up.
And it's hard. Like we'll put through like almost 100 projects a year. Like,
wow,
just like different stuff. Like we put in like a lot of work, a lot of shoots on stuff. So like finding those spare days, definitely some days that I have off, I'm just like cruising town, going to the vinyl store, drinking coffee. Like I like my walks, but it's good. Now with staff, it's way easier. I got most nights and weekends off. Like I'll do a bit of emailing after the kid goes to bed, but that was like a huge part. You asked like about taking the risk of hiring. A big part of it was that I wanted kids and I needed to create a structure. So one, I needed to create the structure that could finance staff, but I also wanted to create a structure that I wasn't the only one responsible, so that nights and weekends, especially nights, like I could just spend time with the family versus emailing. Because if you're shooting all day, you're not answering emails.
Exactly.
You got to do that at night, right?
You got to be a human too, right? And have just, you know, a family life, and kind of got to balance that. Would you say that all those adventures are what allow you to approach things the way that you do now, like those riding bikes through Detroit? And I'm sure there's a multitude of other pretty cool stories. You don't seem like a very, you know, drive a boring car kind of guy, wear the same.
Nah, I mean, I guess like I just got lucky throughout my life. I think if you put the hard work, you get lucky. You know,
Cameron from Cameron Forrester, he's a good friend of mine. We worked together. He was on episode 5 or 6. He said there's like his grandfather used to tell him there's no such thing as luck. It's when preparation meets opportunity. That's what luck is. And then in your case, it was the preparation of shooting for fun and knowing the cameras and the angles and
keeping those doors open, right? I make sure not to burn bridges. I make sure to like keep doors open the whole time. So I moved out west for 2 years.
Cool.
Trying to go to California. It's a long story, but
West
like
Canada or BC?
BC, yeah.
Or sorry, I said the same thing twice, but
I tried to move to California, but stayed in BC for love. But I remember like I was moving back to Ottawa. Yeah. So I met a client. I took a client out for lunch and be like, hey, I'm moving back. They thought I was going to tell them I was moving because I was traveling so much. I just kept like coming back once a month just to do a small job, just to pretend I was still here. I still had the studio. And I still kind of like had somebody helping me out, manage it and stuff. But like I left town for 2 months and 2 years, and almost nobody knew about it because I was just like trying to keep those doors open.
And you kept the studio open, like
just kept like trying to like figure shit out and
fun. Like it's interesting. How were you able to fund that? Like
I just had people renting it, right?
Okay, you had it as a rental space.
Yeah. Like still now, the studio is like kind of just finances itself
because people rent the space. So Jen used to rent your studio, right? Jen, this is her studio now.
Yeah, which I'm sure like gave her the bug to have her own space, right?
Sure,
she could do, you know, there's limitations on like how often you can use it per month and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, for us, that's the model. But yeah, with luck, it's like I just kind of put time in, and then I did an internship with this guy from Montreal, and he showed me how to travel. He did once a year. He was like, how old is he? He's 20 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And his wife was like a vegan yoga teacher.
Wow.
So once a year, he'd just go down south and eat barbecue. We would just eat meat for like a week.
Oh, like he was full-time vegan when he was with her.
Yeah, well, at the house and
Yeah,
stuff.
of course.
Right?
Yeah, he lived
but then
together.
once a year, he would just go all out. It would just like, all we would do, eat barbecue. It'd be 10 a.m. and you're eating like 3 pounds of barbecue. But he brought me places. It's not like going to Paris or going to these fancy places. We're going down to like really small towns, and he's showing me. This is before like Chef's Table barbecue and all this stuff, right? Like,
Where's this in the south?
I've done all. We did Louisiana, Mississippi, Atlanta, Florida. We did in Texas.
Would you drive to these places?
We'd fly, and then I would do all the driving, and then he had this book of like where to eat.
That's really cool.
And then we go like, oh, there's a pecan pie 2 hours from here. So we like pick this, and then we would drive, and then we'd see there was like these kids all in camel gear just playing outside on 4-wheelers. It was like, let's go there. And then we'd go and just photograph them. And then we'd stop for a coffee and start chatting with people and be like, anything interesting over here? And be like, Luke has a cool taxidermy shot. Cool. We go to Luke's. Yeah. And then we meet this farmer. And the next, we're like sitting in a tiny little hydraulic boat with Tiny, who just got out of prison yesterday, and learning how to drive this boat. And I'm in the boat with this like stick with this light, standing up as like this guy. This obviously Tiny isn't Tiny, but it just like taking photos.
With that 4x5?
He was drawn with shooting. I was just assisting on these shoots. I was just like purely, it was like
that's amazing.
3-4 years. We'd go once a year, and I'd just assist. We did a full week in prisons, just like going through like hardcore prison, and everybody's so nice in the South that we just get around like it's just amazing. That was my best trip. We did Louisiana and Mississippi, up and down the Mississippi River for 2 weeks. That was like the best trip of my life. It was just like, there is stories on stories on stories. I could do like a full hour just on the stories.
Just on your stories of your travels.
Yeah.
Man, that's pretty inspiring. I love traveling too, and I love going, I guess, off the beaten path and not doing the kind of mainstream touristy attractive stuff. But I don't think I've ever done it to that extent of like 2 weeks of road tripping.
And then it's like
small towns and stuff.
I haven't done it yet, and I kind of was planning it pre-COVID, and now it's harder because I got to schedule time off from the family. But it's just like we would do 1 week, and all we're doing is photography. That's it. On
film or digital or both?
I would shoot film. He'd do digital.
That's
like
cool.
Still, because he would do books. Like he'd do promos. Like he did a whole book on alligator wrestlers.
That's really cool.
So he'd do that, but it was just like you'd wake up in the morning and you'd start, and then once the sun goes down, then we're done. We go for dinner.
Cool.
But you just like from sun up to sundown, it's just shoot time.
So you just had an idea of what you wanted to shoot, or not even? You just wanted to capture that place.
It's
and
all
what it had
him.
to offer.
So this is all him, right? But it was him. It was like one time was barbecue. So just going to barbecue spots and then filling in with extra. And then the other thing, he has a book. He's photographing aging prisoners. So we did a week of just prisons. So this is all the lead up to it, right?
And you can just get into a prison and photograph people?
He had, because he had the experience, he's older, right? And he had shot a doc on aging prisoners before that's been on BBC. So he has like all this stuff, right?
Okay, yeah.
But, and then he just like listened and researched and found a prison that had a really progressive program. These prison inmates, we got there, we saw a full talent show from these inmates. It was insane. It was so good.
Because I guess they were aware that you were coming, right?
Yeah.
But a lot goes on in prison.
Yeah, and there was like, it was good. So we did, so yeah, it was just all the shooting. So he puts a lot of thought into it. And I do that now with personal projects too. I put thought into how it's going to end up. Like, it's different.
Before you even touch the camera, you're thinking like
the end product. Like thinking of it, it's different now because of Spotify, but like vinyls or like albums, right? CDs. Like I have favorite songs from when a kid, but I also have favorite albums of like top to bottom. How does the album play?
That's cool.
So when I do a project, I think of it as an album of like, if every photo is a portrait and everybody's centered, it's boring series. Okay. So how do you fill in the gaps? Like sometimes albums have a minute song, just instrumental, because it allows flow for something to hit harder after, right?
That's cool.
So when I think about projects, and I came back from those trips to the South and had photos, and I thought they were great. And I showed them to Tony Foose, who's like huge kind of mentor, and kind of indirectly, but I just was a great photographer when I was there. Still is a great photographer, but he was just like really in the game. And he destroyed my series. He just destroyed it.
Just pick it apart?
Just picked it apart. And it was the best thing, because then when I shot my first World War series out in Europe, I built that narrative. Like every shot that he destroyed, they were all the same. Everything was centered.
Is that what he would say to you? It's like these are all looking.
There's no stories.
He'd critique you on what, like framing and composition?
There's no stories. There's no depth. You're just photographing cool shit. You're just like, oh, this is cool, I'm gonna take a photo. There's no story behind it, right?
Like, so then how do you, like, because it's very simple. Everyone's very familiar with the process of clicking snap photo on a multitude of devices, right? So how do you then convey a story with a photo?
For me, like, I have commercial photographer, and then I have like gallery-based photographer, two different things. If I'm doing gallery-based, there's reachers, there's theme. So I did like a whole thing on the First World War on like looking at the scars in the landscape as a way to tell stories. Like,
I saw that on your website.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
if there was a photo, like I didn't photograph Vimy Ridge.
Okay.
If you could Google a photo, I didn't care about photographing it. Like, why go to the monument, center the monument, and photograph Vimy Ridge like it's on a $10 bill? Like, nah, it's like not interesting to me. Like, it's on the freaking currency. Like, I don't need to photograph it, right? I think, and for me, that was part of my stuff. I'm doing a thing on Acadian deportation, and that's kind of stuff that interests me with photography, is like stuff that's story based on like what is of interest in this thing. You can go down south and tell this your version of the story down south or wherever you are, but I'm less interested in just going around and just taking snaps of stuff. Like when I was using this camera and traveling down the States, it took 10 years for me to pull up a story of it, of like the show was called No Vacancy, and basically it was just me traveling through failed relationships and stuff, and my like elevator pitch was traveling drunk and alone. But like that took 10 years to tell that story. The photos look good, got a bunch of likes on Instagram, like all that shit was good. But for it to like make sense took a while.
Yeah, because that to materialize. That's really interesting, because I noticed like your work is very impactful. Like you really capture the essence of an individual. And I find like when I look at your photos, I've seen them on House of Common and your personal website. I look at these photos and I'm like, I can see it in the eyes of the subject that there's something more there. And I think now getting to know you a little bit, that does speak to how you can, bring that out in a person. But when you are photographing a person, what are you doing? Are you speaking with them? Are you snapping a bunch of photos to get the perfect one? How do you approach that? I
think like, you asked me like, how do you tell a story behind a photo? I think if I'm doing LinkedIn photos, clients often don't have it's like 15 minutes per person, half an hour per person.
Yeah.
Usually that stuff doesn't end up on the Instagram, the website, because it's too quick. If I'm lucky to shoot for a magazine or do something, we've done a couple of high profile portraits where we have time, like 2 hours with a person, then I can do what you're explaining. I'll take time and chat with the person. One of the number one things I'll do, which is I picked up from another photographer, is like I'll do this, which kind of feels like big shot, but I'll do this. My assistant knows if I do this to just pick up the camera because I want to talk to you without anything in between us.
Interesting. Like you just hand off the camera.
I hand off. I'll
full,
put
like Platon style.
Yeah, but totally, like it's huge. I'll often put a chair or a stool or apple box. Okay. Like if my assistant's too far, I'll put something next to me to do that, because if I want to chat with you, like I want you to like me. I want that to show in your eyes, right? I remember like photographing Michaëlle Jean, who used to be Governor General of Canada. That's cool. I'm taking her photo for magazine cover, right? We're doing thing, having a good time, everything's good. And then all of a sudden she says, I lost a sparkle in my eyes when my mother died. And you're like,
wow.
Like right there, right live. And then you're shooting her for a cover. And she just said like, she's not there. She's thinking about her dead mother. I was like, how do you
How do you come back from that?
And it's like, you know, you put the camera down, you go there, and there's her assistant. Somehow I came up with like her assistant and be like, what's your job? And it was like, what do you do? It was like, is your job to just find funny cat videos on YouTube and send her up to her? And boom, everybody's laughing, got her back. And it was like, just got her laughing again and doing that stuff, like a lot of my job. And that's the part of my job I love. If I got like 2 hours with a person, like Alexander Shelley, they gave us 3 half days with him.
Who's that?
He's the conductor at the NEC. He does the music director, like orchestra stuff. So they gave me 3 half days with him. One in studio, one at the NEC, and one we shot at Riviera. And that's my favorite is if I go on location, then I can like, it gives me more stuff to build a story than in the studio. But
they're in their element, right? This is where they are most of the time.
Yeah, or just like wanting, you know, the whole thing with shooting Riviera was like people go to the NEC and then they go for a cocktail at Riviera, right? It was kind of showing this kind of theme to everything. But with Shelley in the studio, I was trying to thing, and I wanted to get rid of the batons, like I didn't want. So I'm like, I asked them to play music and just close their eyes and direct. And that was how I got like the emotions behind what he does. Like, how do you get personal? How do you show? They're always like standing like this, the batons like always stiff, but like classical music isn't stiff. It's like fluid. It's like loose. So getting him to close his eyes and like direct the music with his hand kind of like let me into the stuff. And it's prep time. Like if I'm doing research on my personal projects, or if I get like a high-end profile like that, it's the time I'm putting in researching, like thinking ideas, writing on books on like what could I do with them, what are the different teams going, scouting beforehand. Even if it's a shoot, we recently did Ottawa Magazine, we did like a 5-restaurant feature for them. And it was just scouting, it was just research. Like I might have lost money on the job, but I was like,
for all the time you put in.
Yeah. And my assistant, right? Like paying my assistant, retouching, like going to the stuff. And I'm like, but I want the stuff to look cool. Like I know that's the stuff that people are going to see. So like, I'm not cutting corners with it.
Yeah. You seem like you like to create important pieces that are important to the individuals that are involved with it. And
I like people to feel important.
Yeah.
I definitely want the people to feel important and feel like...
Because they are. Everybody's important. Everyone plays a very important role in their life and the lives of the people that are around them.
And you want to make sure they don't think you suck.
Yeah, or you're a jerk. That's really cool, man. I like that. I really like your approach to photographing stuff. And for those of you listening, I'm going to link Rémi's work in the description. Have a look at it and let us know what you feel. Drop a comment. Let us know if you felt anything or what particular one. One photo that stood out to me was the donuts on the pool table.
Yeah.
Like why? I just want to know why. Why is there donuts on a pool table?
That's exactly it. It's why not? Like that's the thing we started with is like be different. So, you know, the magazine comes up and be like, you're going to shoot a series on donuts. So for me, that's it. Like that's all the magazine says is like, you're shooting donuts.
That's it.
Okay. So then I'm like, all right. So then we start thinking of like, what are donuts? Donuts are like a casual food. They're like a common food. They're a playful food, right? Especially with the donuts we have with Suzy Q. They're like crazy with Fruit Loops and like bacon. Like they're wild donuts.
Yeah.
So how do you cater that in a photo? Do something different. So we're playing with ping pong, pinball, and pool was the 3 I had themed. And then I knew that the Carlton Tavern, I could go in and do whatever I wanted. Just pay them like, I think it was $50 or $100 for whatever.
To shoot at their
to shoot there. And if I'd go there before 5 p.m., I'd do whatever I want and just show up. So that's what we did. It was the only thing of like thinking of a theme.
So you had a box of donuts and a location and you just went for it? I love it. I love it's a cool contrast of colors, the green and the green felt with the wooden table. And then
any client that gives us that freedom, I go far. Most of the time we don't have that. It was lucky with Shelley, like bringing him to Riviera was like a huge negotiation process. It's like a
with Riviera or with him?
With him. It was like with his
or his team or whatever.
His team and stuff. Like to have, can we have a cocktail? Can we not have a cocktail?
Oh, yes.
Like all that politics of it. So when we do, and then, which is why this Christmas we did this hockey promo, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I wanted to show the hockey thing. My buddy had done a hockey card. So that I heard every scene. So I stole his idea, and he did. Jamie McClellan, a character creative, had done the hockey cards. I'm like, listen, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to push it further. So we just went like, how far can we push this? So making jerseys, which I have one in my bag, which is over there. So making our own hockey jersey, making our own logo, making our own hockey card, getting the bios on the hockey cards, which Nikolai Gregory, who's a huge part of the studio, part-time kind of a thing, but a huge part of just the family of it, kind of came in with the idea of the bio thing, and then doing the hockey pucks, doing stickers. We did like post-game interviews with everybody to have that, and then all packaging it to send to client, just for the thing of like...
It's just for a Christmas thing, right?
Just for shits and giggles.
That's amazing.
It. And spending like $3,000 on it just for shits and giggles. But I hand delivered this to all the art directors, like a bunch of art directors in town, and just hand delivered it.
The physical cards?
Yeah. The whole package.
You actually have them. I'll be honest with you, Remy, those cards, I saw them online. That is what caught my attention for House of Common. I went to this page and I'm like, what is this wacky looking group of individuals? I want to know more. And then I sent you a message saying, hey, like, do you want to be part of the show?
I'll let you take it out. And that's the family photo, which you can show.
Cool.
So, I mean,
show that there.
But that was part of it. Like, for me,
that's so cold.
Like, I'd say,
is this the dog?
Yeah, that's Murphy. Yeah, it's a Murphy.
Put that there.
Which Murphy has become kind of like the studio mascot or whatever. But that was part of me, was to
make custom pucks. So we got a puck.
Like, I almost would say I'm a better business person than photographer.
Same.
And
cool.
and a big part of this was just to be able to show. A big part of this was just be able to show like full concept. Like, obviously, I think the photography is good. Like, we hired a makeup artist,
there's
right?
Stuff on the back. Too.
Like, they're full bios.
Are these available anywhere, like for people to look at, or are these like these are rare?
We have the photos. We don't have the bios on it. I have some. I mean, I'll mail them out if people want the hockey cards. Hockey pucks we don't have. Hockey cards. Say there's 5 of them. Go on Instagram. Tell me which one you want.
This is really cool. And then the sticker, House of Common sticker.
But it was showing like full branding, right?
Unreal,
The production, the hiring, the makeup artist, the concept, the jersey.
Like full on, like beat up after a hockey game for Nikolai here. He's got like a bloody nose and stuff.
Yeah. With that, we did that was my executive decision. We cut the cord on the tampon. We had like...
Oh, that's a tampon.
That's a tampon up his nose.
Oh my goodness.
He had like... Which is an actual thing they use in sports because it
absorbs a lot, right?
Yeah. So there was a soccer player that had like a tampon that was in a string. I was like, we're not leaving the string in that.
That is really cool.
But that's part of like being creative, right? That's how I keep it fun and just like love doing stuff. And then when we have a client that opens that door, like I push that door open and see how far we can go.
Yeah. There's always that voice inside my head, at least, that is saying like, it's like the fear of going to those unknown places and pushing things that far. There's always a voice I find inside my head that's like, you can't do this. Like you can't sustain a business while doing wild shit like this. Like you have to kind of stay in a straight-ish line. Like I do find myself, being creative, but not so much pushing things to that extent because I'm worried. I'm like, I get this like fear inside me, like, this is silly, this is wacky, it's goofy, it's not professional. All these things start coming up. I'd
say it had that kind of linear strategy until I was 30, until I talked back to my mom. I think like, my mom was this thing of like always commenting on my hair. My mom's fantastic. Like I'm making fun of her now, but both my parents.
But was she a very particular?
Yeah,
person?
she's like I was wearing like a suit coat forever. Like I was wearing always a button down shirt.
Yeah.
And it was like I always had clean shaven, and then like my hair was always short. Always like how I had to do. But I mean, it taught me, like, we run like massive campaigns now. Like where I'll have 40 people on set, like firearms, like dealing with all this stuff. Like we just finished a firearm safety campaign.
That's really cool.
I just
for,
like
the federal government.
Yeah. Wow. But so we just like, I did that linear, like kept it safe. when I was 30, I kind of felt my clients took me more seriously, and I kind of like was allowed more room than when I was 25. That was huge difference. And even now I'm 40, so I'm 40 like now, and clients now at 30 they would tell me what to do, but they would trust me to do it. At 40 they're asking me what to do.
Yeah, they're looking
they're
to
like
you.
full blown. It was a switch like in the past 3 years where I'm not even sent Getty images. Like usually you get like stock images, like this is what the campaign should look like. Not even anymore. They're like, we have a campaign, what do you think? So we'll do full, it depends on the clients, but we'll do shot lists, we'll do themes, location scouts, treatment, full treatment and stuff, which a lot of people do on video, but wasn't seen on a still side. But we'll just take care of every step of the way. Model choices, everything, makeup. We just take care of anything internally now.
That's really cool.
Which is good for business, right? The more you do, the better it is for.
So you say 40 people on set. Is that crew and talent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and running through models and stuff, and the client, like you can have 3 people with the agency, like 3 people with the client, and then you got emailing photos back to a client somewhere else, and producer, you have the staff for the location and everything. Like, I mean, it's not often. This year there's been a lot of that. Usually it's like 2 a year, but yeah, it's less people than on. It's more on stills because video runs bigger crews. Stills usually is smaller, but with 30 people on a still shoot is like.
That is a lot. Yeah. That's like it's kind of foreign to me. Like when I started chatting with Nick, who like Nick Gattis from I think episode 7 or 8, he was telling me how he has like food stylist and assistant and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, it's like, I didn't realize photo was that involved, but I understand like when you're really, there's a lot of pieces to it. And the final photo is like the smallest part, right? Like the snapping of the photo is the last thing you do.
I mean, that was something I stole from Aaron Mackenzie Fraser, that guy that I moved into when I moved back to Ottawa. He's like, I don't know who he was saying, but he was almost saying like the photo, if this photo doesn't suck, it's almost the bonus.
Yeah.
Like if the client works at a desk, they're getting out of the desk. Like they want to go to the location. They want to see the photo shoot. That's their highlight of the month, is to get out of the office. So they want an experience. They want to laugh. Like I remember having Cassette shooting something with Cassette. We're doing a video thing, and I got roped into like Cassette's like one of the biggest agencies in North America. And I'm like, there was a time I had everybody in stitches on set. Like I'm there to just be a fly on the wall, come in, take a photo for 10 minutes and get back. Cause I'm like just supporting the video team. But in those 10 minutes, I get everybody on stitches. Like, and I'm just like, I'm taking the space.
Snap the photos, right?
Yeah. You're trying to make the person laugh. But if I hear the director in the back that like worked on some Oscar nominated movie, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm trying to make him laugh. Like I want him to remember me, right? Like,
yeah, that's a good point what you said, how like, you know, like they're in the office all day and like they get one day with a photographer to do these pro photos that their management hired to do, and their experience, it's true, because that's going to give them energy to kind of keep going through their job and make them feel like what they're doing is important, and you know, you show them in a great light and they feel like, wow, like I'm a professional. Like a lot of what I do, I film, create a lot of content for marketing, either selling stuff, selling houses, selling cars, selling products, and a lot of people are apprehensive. They don't want to go on camera because it's maybe they're from an older generation and they don't understand the full value of it. But it's the most satisfying process to work with these like adults and these professionals, coach them through it, and then have them be like, wow, like that's cool, like that's me, you know, you made me look so good, thank you. Even, you know, people with, you know, maybe a little bit of an accent, people who are not so confident with their speech, with uhs, and then you cut it all beautifully and you show them this piece and you combine that with some nice looking footage, and then they're like, wow, like you made me look pro. And to me, that's awesome, because I see light bulbs go off, and then the more we do videos, they start having ideas. Like, oh, I have this idea, I want to do this, can we try this, and I'm like, yes, we can, absolutely we can, let's do it. And then it just we keep making cooler stuff. Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing, right? Of where you're asking, like, how do you get the story? Like, that's part of the story, like you're building stories for clients, right?
Yeah.
You can go in there and make it quick and dirty and just like get out, or you can build a better story for them, right? You need to put in the time, the research and stuff, and there's like, you know, you're not billing for those hours to convince them to get on set and do stuff, but like that's the whole process of being a story. And if you're not a jerk, then they hire you again, right?
Yeah, exactly. Storytelling isn't one thing that attracted me to this medium of cameras. It was more so like the technical aspect and the visual, I guess, like the pleasing looks, like things that look cool. That's kind of what attracted me. And as I grow as a video creator and like, you know, I guess artist, if you will, I feel like I'm only now learning about storytelling. I'm learning through other people and how to tell a story with what I'm doing and have some sort of progression. And it's interesting to chat with you and hear your perspective as someone who's been doing this for, you know, 3 times as long as me.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. Like anybody can follow a recipe, right? You say YouTube, like anybody can see a lighting setup and just do the same in their studio, right?
Yeah.
Like anybody can look them up, but you got to look like what makes you different. And I think it's with the storytelling that like sets us apart, makes us special. And like how, if it's your story and you're trying to show your story through a personal project, or you have somebody in front of you and be like, how do you make them look different, look special?
That's cool. Yeah, it is all about the stories. And I mean, everything is a story. If you really boil it down, there's the story you tell yourself about your identity and who you are. There's a story you tell yourself about everything you know and the people you know. And when you look at things, you remember a story. Like, I know this is a glass bowl because I've seen glass bowls in my life and I've labeled them as glass bowls. And
yeah.
I guess, yeah, everything is a story. It's a cool medium. And I find it a good analogy. I like to think of it as it's like a never-ending onion that you keep peeling. And do you still, after all these years, find yourself like excited and curious and learning new things?
I think like I get excitement from different spots. I think like we're talking about clients. Like one of the reasons I have Marin or have staff is to allow me more time on set. Like I have the same assistant for everything, the same Digitech. So she takes care, often like she talks to the client. Like I give my time on set. I trust her so much that I can pull away and think and do stuff. Like that's a big part. Like me, business strategy is like what gets me excited now more than shoots. Like where do I want to take the studio? What do I want next? What's my next 10 year? How am I going to retire? What is retirement going to look like?
Interesting.
Like all that stuff. It always was in the back of my mind. And I'm say this with the best way possible. When I was 30, I noticed that like there's an expiry date on photographers that like it started to go down around 45 and 50. And I'm like, hopefully nobody slashes my tires for saying that. But it was just like, and it's more so now being older, it's just more so about how photographers are different. The kids, like people like you, and I include you in kids, they're just so much energy. You don't have like, you're not putting your kids through university or college. Like you can party and not be hungover. You can do all this stuff. You can be at home and just like Photoshop all night without pissing off your partner or whatever.
Right.
There's just so much energy when you're 25 and producing stuff that I just knew that when I'd be older, that isn't there just because of biology.
Right.
So now I kind of shifted that, which is why I like having Marin here, and I plan like she's going to be the main photographer in 3 years. Like that's cool. Want her to take that role, and I've always like shared that with her. Why I bring her with me to LA, why I bring her with me to New York on these big shoots, because I want her to learn the whole package. And how like with Nikolai, we're hoping that, you know, he can come in and do some stuff. He's helped out a lot. He was in Montreal for the past 6 months. It was a bit harder, but now he's in town, and we're like keep chatting on how I want to see the studio. And I think like I just want to offer more flavors, more DJs, right? Like if Marin's the pro country music DJ and Nikolai Moore is the heavy metal guy, then I can decide who's the best fit for the job, right? And that's the direction I'd find. And that keeps me exciting. It's just like, sure, I could take on the jobs, but I kind of get exciting to see like just the people that are within the studio that come in, how they progress and how they, like, that stuff is exciting for me.
Because it wasn't always like that though. Like you said, like when you were in your 20s, like you weren't thinking about this stuff.
No. I mean, I graduated.
A little bit.
Yeah. I always have like
you wanted to make, like, I have those thoughts too. Like, is this sustainable? Is this feasible? Can I make a living doing
my
this?
dream, like,
and build a family and stuff.
I'm like very grateful because when I graduated college in 15 years ago, I wanted a solo show at Ottawa Art Gallery. I wanted a studio with staff, and what was the other one? Oh, I wanted a cover for Vanity Fair, which is why
Did you get it?
No, I've done a couple of cool covers and stuff, Billboard magazine and other stuff in the UK, but which is why I tried to move to California in 2015. But I was like, I reached that stuff in my early 30s, and I was like, oh fuck. I was like,
now what?
Yeah, but part of it was like, and like you said, it's like, I don't know. Now it seems easy to be able to like take vacation and pay vacation for your whole family, like my girlfriend and her kid, and go places and afford cool motorcycles and do all that stuff. Like for me, it was and big part of Justin's talk is all about the business side of it, right? Which me is like a massive part of my business, although I spend all this time talking about creative because I kind of put that more in the forefront. But yeah, forwarding that stuff is when I make decisions and how I push myself, like everything he shared on, like not devaluing your work and doing all that stuff and getting proper pay and trying to go out and doing these and like being available to chat to younger photographers. I'm like super open book. Like any young photographer wants to quote for something but has no thing. It's like, I'd rather we quote the same price and they get the job over me because they're better than they charge half as much, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm like, if they get the job because they're better than me, then I got to step up.
Exactly.
Like I love that competition. I just like
keeps you going.
Yeah, it keeps me pushing for sure.
I learned a lot from Justin's episode on like the valuing, and it's one thing I struggle with because, like I said to Justin, like I love doing this. I love creating stuff. I love making stuff and fixing old stuff and building and all this stuff. And so to be able to do that for a living and, you know, it works, it's sustainable, but I still have that, like, you know, I have that difficulty valuing things because maybe to me, I'm like, okay, it's only worth this price, but the market says it's worth this price. And I'm getting better, obviously, as time goes on, but it is a struggle because you're like, it's that imposter syndrome of like, am I worth that much? But then you really boil it down and you look at all the tools and resources you have, and I guess you are. Like, it's, as I speak to people like yourself and Nick and Justin and, you know, Jen, and people who've just been doing it for longer than I have, I start to understand how it's possible to hold it for this long. And
and part of it is like for you to go out there and get the information. Part of it's for people like me who are old and like want to go out. I see that sun.
Yeah, the sun's it's okay. No,
I'm trying to see. I don't want to mess up your lighting, so I'm trying to avoid the sun that's coming in right in my face. I was just like, put my sunglasses and look cool again. Yeah. But part of it is like I want to go out there. I want to also be available for people that have questions to help out. To be like, here's how I quoted, like to just show quotes and show pricing so people.
That's nice of you.
Like I do that when I talk to high schools. I'll pull up a quote and be like, oh fuck, you can charge that much.
So you go to high schools to actually speak to
as much as possible. One is like,
how do you even do that? Do you reach out to them?
They reach out
to you. Yeah.
But I like going to colleges. I found a lot of assistants, right? Because the person asking the question in the classroom is the person that are going to be a good assistant because they're not scared and they're not shy and stuff. Like that is telling. But I'll show like a crazy quote to them just because I want them to dream and be like, what, you can get paid like 10 grand a day? Like there's so much work that gets into
but you break it down, right? Where is this 10 grand coming from?
But you still want them dreaming for that, right? Like
I like that.
Don't go out there and just spend it all on the Subaru, but
spend all the shots fired on the Subaru that's parked outside. Definitely don't do that.
It's a nice car.
Yeah. It's a station wagon. It's good. It's good for hauling gear. I was able to bring all this stuff here today without folding the seats down.
Any photographer that doesn't own a hatchback, I don't get it.
Yeah, you hate your life. You need a hatchback because it's just like you just throw the stuff and you stack it to the roof. Yeah. The most I've ever fit, I used to have a Volkswagen Golf and fit 6-foot dolly pipes and a Dana dolly. And I think we had an RE Skypack. We fit all this stuff and we went to Toronto to shoot an apartment building. I just couldn't believe how much stuff we fit.
I have like I wanted a different car than I had now, but it was a big part that I have two types of Pelican, and they need to sit flat side by side.
Okay.
And my car choice was that. I mean, it's fine. It's like, but it's like I wanted to buy an EV, but they at the time didn't make them big enough to like be able to stack my stuff. Like I'd take a test drive on a car, bring it in the house, and then put
all the gear. Most people are seeing if it fits in the garage, and you're seeing if your gear fits. That's a good idea. I never even thought of that.
Yeah, but it's just like my stuff goes in the car a certain way, so that's kind of what's important.
That's awesome. Rémi, so what are some things you're passionate about outside of, cameras and photos and
being funny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I like entertaining.
You have you ever done any sort of like stand-up comedy or anything?
No, it's on the bucket list.
Okay.
It's like I'm working on it. I'm saying maybe 5 years.
I'd come see you.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I got a couple. I actually on when was it? 2 weeks ago? There was an on set, and I've came up with like a decent joke, and then I kind of tested it with a client, had everybody in stitches for like 3 to 5 minutes. I was like, all right, this is like just enough confidence.
Stand-up comedy.
I think it's just being nice. I just like now it's great. I mean, now it's totally different because like I said, my girlfriend and her, I always wanted kids, and I coach from the age of 16 to 26. I coached kids at this kind of like French version of the Canadian Games. And I just like that. I wanted that role. And it was like a massive shift to having a 10-year-old living in your house. Yeah. Like every morning, you got to get him ready for school and stuff. And when you're coming home, like I can't be cranky. Like work can suck, but it's not his fault, right?
Yeah, he doesn't care if you have a bad day. Like, he needs...
So that's a shift. And even something as stupid as like, as a business, I always look to push stuff, right? Push it. And with him, it was like, I realized his mom told me like, I do that with him. I was like, sometimes just go with his idea. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like I always say like, yeah, but we could do this. Yeah, but we could do that. And the kid just wants to like do something simple. I'm like, fuck, okay. So it's just like teaching me to slow down, be more attentive, right? It's like, it helps with the clients of like, if you're doing all the talking, you're not going to get their story. Yeah. Like they're not going to pull out of that, like get them interested, right? So, I mean, all that stuff keeps me excited.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a very cool perspective on things. I appreciate you sharing that with me and with
I think it's important listening. I think it's like not obvious when you're 25 30, but like it was a thing I wanted very much. Now I'm planning, like hoping semi-retire by the time I'm 50, and how is that gonna like, how I'm gonna finance that? But a big part of it's like, you're 25, you're not thinking about buying a house, but I'm teaching Marin, who's 23, like we're talking about like how buying a condo, buying a house, like how she can get investment, how preparing for her like retirement now at 23, right? I'm like,
makes it easier in the long run, right?
Well, you can learn how to save money, right? Yeah. And like charging more, because if you ever want to have a family, buy a house, like it's just like all part of the game, right?
Yeah, that's cool. It's funny you said you group me into like kids. Like as 26, I still feel like a kid sometimes.
It's great.
But it's I guess it's a reminder to not take everything so seriously and to still enjoy living and having this much energy. Because I find I have a large amount of energy and I do a lot of stuff, and I sometimes wonder why the people around me are not that they're not doing this stuff, but I find I do a lot of stuff alone because of the fact that not many people match my energy. But
it's hard. Yeah, that's a big thing. It was like finding, it was a thing for me to finding stuff. But it was Tony Fu's, that guy that destroyed my series that I shot down south. He also told me that anything worth lasting is going to take a while to build. Yeah. So, if you're putting all this energy, anything that's going to be good, it's not going to happen overnight. And that made me slow down to be like, it's hard because you see Instagram, you see like 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds shooting like the Oscars or whatever, right? Like Queen Mo, like there's a photographer from New York who's like one of the best fashion photographers. The guy's like, he looks 22. Like, I don't know how old they are, but they're like super young. And I'm like, fuck, like half my age. and they're killing it, right? But it's just like, okay, it's okay. I still like have a cool motorbike in the garage. It's okay.
It's like, yeah, I guess they are the exception. They are the outlier, not you.
But it's still the thing, you know, like hockey players. Like I'm now at the age where, you know, he's like, oh, that hockey player is really slow on the ice. Yeah, because he's my age.
Yeah, it is. I am starting. That's settling in. The things that are meaningful take time, and they're gonna last a while. There's no use rushing them.
No, I think that's important. I think that's a lot of things. And then just shooting a lot, right? Like having the energy, but put it to good use. Like I see when I talk to college and high schools, just keep taking photos. Doesn't matter what camera it is. Like just go out there and, you know, like Jared from Ajax was just saying, like, he's just always shooting stuff and always like, or writing stuff, right? Like if you're not shooting, you're always like thinking about, always have stuff percolating versus just like playing video games or whatever, which is fine to do too. But
but you got to shoot. That is why I shoot film, because it allows, because the process of shooting digital to me feels like work, whereas this feels fun. This feels.
What do your parents think about what you're doing for a living now?
They supported. The only thing they ever told me in my life was go to university, because they're both Lebanese. They grew up in Lebanon, and they ran away from Lebanon because it was a pretty turbulent place, like politically and all this stuff. So they didn't have the opportunity to go to school. And the one thing my father wanted was, you got to go to school. You got to finish university, because he couldn't, and he wanted to give that opportunity to his kids, which I was like, done it. Spent 5 years in university, and then I started doing this. But it's always a bit of a challenge to try to explain what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and how it's sustainable, but helps me wrap my head around it. They support it 100%. They're very, very great parents. They support it, and they don't question it, because I always try to keep them involved in what's going on. And tell them about, like, hey, we're doing a podcast. What the hell is a podcast? You know, it's a radio show. It's just not live. It's something along those lines. I guess that is what a podcast is.
No, but it's and if you have like if you're tight with your family or their bring, like it's in the back of the mind, right? Like my parents didn't want me to go to photography, but luckily similar. My parents are from Lebanon, from a totally safe politically spot, but luckily I went to university, or else like they would have been on me for like a lot longer. Like it was. Yeah, there was like photography. Like nobody makes a living. I had an uncle that's like great guy and takes a lot of photos of birds and stuff now, but he's like wanted to be a photographer, and they were like, nobody makes a living out of photography, because of Prince Edward Island, nobody does, right?
So they didn't know any different, right?
No. Yeah. And now they're like obviously really proud, and I get nominated for the Junos. This is like all over like my mom's Facebook.
So cool. Number one fan is always
my
parents.
Mom? Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the best. Yeah. I guess parents just want to know that you're going to be okay. That's pretty much it. They just want to know that you're going to be able to hold yourself down and, you know, not wind up in some sticky situations financially, I guess, and that's all that matters. So do you have any advice then, Rémi, for people who are aspiring to be a visual storyteller, to be a photographer, a creator of any sort? What would your advice be to them?
I think like the number one is just create, and just like do
just
stuff.
Make stuff.
Yeah, just make stuff. You just like, and then let's say I'll boil it down to 3. Just make stuff. Don't be scared of mistakes. I find like mistakes are progress. Like if you're not making mistakes, is you're not pushing yourself far enough. Like you gotta make mistakes to just know like, okay, where to like keep going. If you're not making any mistakes, you're like taking the easy road. Yeah. And I think it's like looking outside of your tight-knit industry. Like I get influenced by stuff that's not photography, that's not video based, that might be like the National Art Gallery, might be food, might be traveling, might be meeting somebody that is like totally out of my friends kind of surroundings and stuff. Like it could be some 85-year-old dude like sitting in a park bench or whatever, right? Like that's cool. I think that's a big part of it. It's just like always keep shooting, make mistakes, and look outside of your little glass bowl.
I love that. The mistakes is an important one. And like I one person, I do a lot of high performance driving on racetracks in the summertime, and that, to me, that translates to a lot of the work that I do, because you're finding the limit of yourself as a driver. You're finding the limit of your machine. You're going over that limit by a hair, and it's literally potentially life or death. and you're dialing it back and you're riding that limit. And that's a lot of what I do, is riding on that kind of limit and eating shit and falling and just like, you know, brushing yourself off and keep going. But I didn't necessarily have that awareness of like mistakes are progress. I was just like doing stuff and messing up and then being mad at myself, like, crap, I messed up, I made a mistake. But I really like what you said about mistakes are progress.
And then being comfortable, I think, you know, with the driving, of course, like just going that limit line, I think like, yeah, mistakes are hard to take in, but I think if you get comfortable with them and being like, all right, it's okay to like, I'll complain as much as anybody, but I complain for 24 hours and then it's done. Like something happens, especially if it, let's say somebody else pissing me off, but I let it go after 24 hours. Like you're just like, you got to move on. Yeah. You got to learn.
You feel the feelings and then you're like, okay.
Yeah. Next. Yeah. There's like, same in mistakes, right? Like after I shoot something, I always like, I'm running through, it's like watching tape after a game or something. I'm like reading through, how could I done everything differently? What could have been different? What could have been better? And then just taking notes for next time, not trying to put myself down, but just like, which is really hard for people. I had to learn to not do that with other people, of just like constantly like trying to push to get the best outcome, just being too critical and super critical. And by making mistakes was too critical of others and had to like chill out. And
you gotta like give them space in a way.
Yeah. Especially with staff. And that took a long time, and just realizing it like now, like let's say 6 months ago, that it's okay if I'm doing video, that my name is not on everything. Like I don't need to be the director on everything. No. It's okay.
It's a team effort, yeah.
Yeah. Like I can give space. Like I can give, the more space you're going to give people, especially your staff, the more they're going to grow, right? Like it's good to give them shoves or like poke them in the right direction once in a while, but that's definitely something I'm learning now on like, just keep improving, right? And kind of be like, all right, how far can I take this? Like having new direction on that.
I love that, Rémi. So we'll kind of come to a close shortly here, but is there any other cool stuff you brought? I don't know if this was everything that you brought. A couple things. I don't want to leave some stuff.
I mean, I just brought toys for you. This is kind of like how something got sent out. So we do these like promos, I'd say twice a year.
Okay.
And often these aren't necessarily client work, but I just kind of want to show how like we did it. Print is really important for me.
So this is like a finished piece right here?
Yeah. Just we mail out to magazines. We may mail those out to magazines, to clients locally, even just anybody. But yeah, this is like the original logo we had, which I like really wanted. I didn't want a business card that was too thick. This is one of the proudest things. I love branding. I love clothing. I love aesthetics.
Yeah.
Like riding,
touching, like feeling like stuff, right?
Anybody riding a 78 CB 750, like it's not the fastest CB, because in 79 they made a dual overhead cam. It's faster, but the 78 is cooler looking.
Is it a 4-speed?
Yeah. 5-speed, 4-cylinder. Yeah.
4-cylinder bike. That's about.
Yeah. It was the fastest bike. I mean, we'll talk about this off camera, but it was like it was revolutionary motorcycle because of the 4-cylinders. But like of this aesthetic of American Psycho kind of business card.
That scene in American Psycho. Comparing the cards. I'll show you my card after.
I wanted a card. I don't want anything I do to be over the top. I mean, a lot of stuff is on that limit of over the top, but I wanted everything to just be very thought up and classic and just a little bit different, a little bit special. So the big thing with the business card is not to make it too thick, not to like try to be over the top, hit anybody on the head. I just wanted to be subtle, but just make it super clean. So then when somebody hires us, like they think that aesthetic is coming in, right?
Yeah. That aesthetic speaks through like everything around you. I find everything, all the tools, I guess even the people, this is such a beautifully packaged collection of photos that to me speaks volumes to the amount of like care that you put into stuff. And
that is my producer. These are my ideas, our ideas. She helps a lot.
She executes and makes them a reality.
Yeah, they wouldn't exist if I didn't have staff.
Yeah.
Like the Instagram
But it's
account.
the collective, right? It is
Yeah.
the representation of House
But
of
having
Common.
that time of like, I don't have that time. I have so many ideas, but I needed somebody to coordinate, and hiring a producer. I mean, Nadine is special because she gets branding. She did branding for her own t-shirt line and stuff for Girl From Away. They do more than t-shirts, but they had an aesthetic. So that kind of came in. She got that, and just having staff allows for that to happen, which I want to do the same side as growing the photography business. Is having other photographers is just like,
that's really cool.
Creating opportunities.
And I aspire to do that too, as I've been an individual owner operator for the first, year and a bit, and then slowly just started expanding and working with other people. And most of them are people in similar positions as me, and they're trying to build their own thing, and we kind of work together as just contractors. I contract them, they contract me, and we kind of all grow. But I do aspire to be at that level where you have a space where people can collaborate and come together physically, because as great as digital is and as amazing it is to communicate digitally, I have so much trouble connecting with people over a screen or through a screen, because I'm just like, I don't know.
I hate it.
I lose attention. Maybe it's not them, it's me. I can't focus on someone for too long through a screen.
No, I want to see your nonverbal. Like if I'm chatting to you, I want to see what your hands are doing. I want to see your feet.
Yeah.
I want to see like if you're bored. Like if I see you like looking at your watch, then I'm like, I'm going to put in a joke because I'm losing you, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm
For me, looking at the watch, I'm just checking time, because sometimes the camera has a bit of a limp, like battery wise, like we can't record forever and it's running out battery.
No,
but it's interesting you say like that body language is so important. The same way, like when you pull out your phone, it signals that your attention isn't there.
Totally.
I did early on when I first started doing high performance driving, I would coach novice drivers on how to drive. And one thing a mentor and friend and pro racer would tell me is your body language in the passenger seat speaks volumes to the driver. If you're sitting there and you're like holding on for dear life, you're stressing them out. If you're relaxed and calm and speaking to them and giving them good feedback and not showing that you're stressed, they're going to be calm. And they're not even looking at you. Yeah. They're just driving a car on a racetrack, and it's already an overwhelming experience. And it's
that's what I'm trying to achieve on these photo shoots. And I'm like, some of these big campaigns, I don't run nervous. I run anxious because I just want everything to go well. But I think that's huge, right? If you can bring that to a set, then everybody's more comfortable, right? If you put that, I think that's a thing that gets an age. I wouldn't have been able to do it before 30 for just having like, you're just dealing with older people and stuff around you. But that was definitely something where people just feed off that confidence if they're coming in, if they're around, if they're hiring you, like that's the energy you got to put out. And I've always been good at sales and like selling stuff. Like if I wouldn't be doing photography, I'd be selling. If I believe something, right? Something. If I believe in the product, I can sell it. That's like cool. I can convince people it's a good idea. Like that's a huge part, especially on person. Like anybody I get on the phone or in a meeting, we get hired. Yeah. Like it's I just believe in it, and then I love to try to convince people to get on board. Right?
Yeah, that's like one of the first things I do in the new connection. Let's chat.
Yeah,
like we can email. Hey, let's have a meeting. Let's talk. Like let's just talk, because I can't. I can write, sure, but like I was always like, are people gonna read my 4 paragraphs? No, let's just have a conversation.
So people get too many emails.
Yeah,
right? So.
Yeah, and I've never had an official job interview. I don't think in my life.
No.
Never really used my resume for anything. She went from school to traveling to trying to make this happen, and here we are.
It's good. I think you're doing good. I think this is great, man.
I love it. These conversations give me energy, as much of a effort it is pre-production, post-production, and then on the day, we're building all this stuff, and it's there's a million other things I could or maybe should be doing, but not necessarily should be. But these conversations give me energy, so thank you for giving me your time. It's been really great to chat with you, Rémi, and learn about your story and learn about you and find out that we both shoot on this camera. I decided to bring this camera because I was just like, screw it. I haven't shoot.
There we go.
You caught me.
It's like, it's the best. It is the best.
Yes, that was recorded. So it's just a fully automatic point and shoot. These things are really easy to use, and they have a pretty nice lens on them.
The trick, if anybody watching, you need to buy one. 2.8 lens is a cheat, and if it's not zoom, that's the
non-zoom. Yeah.
If you're going to Valley Village, there's a million point and shoot cameras.
Yeah.
Not zoom, 2.8 lens. It's good
For a point and shoot film, that's a good criteria.
Yeah. It'll be cool. Like decent.
Yeah. I honestly, some of my favorite photos ever in the last year and a half have been taken on this camera. What's your favorite type of film? Just curious.
They still have it. Royal Gold 200 nice. Kodak. Walmart had it forever. You could buy 3 rolls for $12.
That's cheap, man.
It was super cheap and it was beautiful.
So nice.
I go into Walmart. It's like the only reason I go into Walmart, and I take
it's
10 bucks. I just buy everything they have. I just buy it all.
You're the reason film is expensive. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's yeah, that's the one I use. If it's medium format or 4x5, it's Portra 160.
That's cool. I'm still experimenting. My girlfriend's mom was cleaning out her basement recently and found a roll of Konica VX200 expired. It's a 24 shot film, not even a 36, but I shot it. I was just like, screw it, let's just try it out. Took it skiing with me. I took it out. I took it just around the house, and I got the photos back, and I was like, oh my God. This is the nicest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, it's just get excited. It's just playing, right? Like, I think having this as part of the play, which I'm teaching with my stepson. He's super into photography, and I'm like teaching him how to use the Hasselblad and the 4x5 and like
cool.
lighting and stuff. I have a Fuji X100 camera, which is all manual, right? So I'm teaching him
the digital?
The digital one. Yeah. But it's fully manual, right?
Yeah.
It runs like an SLR. So that's his camera. Like when we travel,
he has one of those in his hand at the age of 10.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's going to shape a lot of his...
Because I'm like, he's screwing up and making mistakes, which is fine. But it's like, you got to learn how light works, right? Like it has an automatic function, but he doesn't know where it is. But it's just like, you got to learn how to use it. Yeah.
Cameras are really cool because I find they make you stop and have a look.
Totally.
They get you to pause, and you're just bringing in the entire universe into a frame.
Especially if your camera like doesn't have a zoom, then you got to walk closer, right? Like the whole thing. I love cameras with no zoom because you're moving, you're interacting. If you have a zoom, you're not interacting.
Yeah.
I think if you don't have that, Fuji doesn't have that, you got to move. So you got to interact. Like that door, does it look better here or does it look better close up? Right?
Yeah, that's what you got to figure out. Love it, man. And I look forward to seeing that pic. We'll take a couple more behind the scenes after we wrap up here. To kind of close this off, I want to ask you a couple fun rapid fire questions.
Rapid fire? All right.
Rapid fire.
I'm ready. All
right. I mean, we might already know the answer to this one, but film or digital?
Film.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Nice.
As I got older, sunrise.
That's usually what happens to most people. You start appreciating early mornings more, I find, as you get older.
Long story, but with COVID, mornings really important for me to set my whole day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coffee or tea?
Both. I'm not addicted to coffee. But
what's in your cup there?
Coffee.
Okay.
Coffee. Generally coffee, but I do like both. I'm not a coffee first thing in the morning person. I like to have it later.
Okay. Do you prefer snow or rain?
Snow.
Nice. Me too. Would you rather eat 100 pickles or 100 olives?
Oh, olives all the way. Hate pickles. Hate pickles and ketchup.
You don't like ketchup?
I fucking
tomato
hate
smoothies?
Ketchup is ketchup is like the worst thing. One of my worst memories in life is being hungover at Bramisol, and they're like hot ketchup on eggs, or like they had to fill up the ketchup bottles with just the smell of heated ketchup, just like.
Okay, heated ketchup is pretty nasty, man. Do you like tomatoes?
Yeah. Okay. Just homemade ketchup, like it's fine. Salsa's fine. Just the pure ketchup. There's some just like some scars back there. I don't know
your
what
weakness.
Yeah.
I know how to take you down now.
It's ketchup, man.
Just whip out a bottle of Heinz ketchup.
I always think of like dressing up as a ketchup bottle for Halloween because how scary it is, but nobody will get the joke.
It's only scary to you. You end up staying in your house all night, just curled up into a ball. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Eliminate ketchup. Fuck. You know what? I ask clients that question a lot. I don't know what it'd be. It's funny because I don't think about that.
The superpower thing.
Yeah.
Or if you could do anything, if you do one thing that's like supernatural.
What would it be? I think flying would be cool.
That would be cool.
I don't need to be stronger than anybody else. I think like flying would allow me to travel cheaply.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be like know everything, the smartest person,
No.
because I want to keep learning, right?
Exactly.
Like if you're a Superman, it's hard. It's like you got nobody's challenging you, right?
Yeah.
I think flying would be cool. Not super fast, just be like,
Just to fly around.
yeah,
Take the
I think
weight
it'd be
off.
cool.
Yeah. I think I'd like to be able to like never get out of breath from running or climbing or whatever. That would
Would
be
you be
fun.
same speed though? You could only run as the speed now, but you would be out of breath. Like,
Yeah, then
not
I just
be
go
out-
start winning marathons left and right.
Right. Well, your body would cramp up before you do. Your legs don't need to breathe, but then they would be like cramp up, right? So you'd still have to train.
I guess because you need the blood to pump to your muscles. Okay, never mind. I'm eliminating ketchup. That's my superpower.
You're making ketchup everywhere just to take me down.
Yeah, that is the end of Remy is 3 bottles of ketchup on a Saturday morning, hungover.
That's it. That's it.
Well, thanks, Remy. I really appreciate your time. This is a nice way to start a week. Usually we've been filming these in the evening and it's all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's a sunny Monday morning.
It's great.
Spring is around the corner. And thank you for listening. Thank you for
Thanks.
watching. If you want any of the details, how to find Remy, how to find our contact info or info for Midnight Hour Studios and all the things about The Creatives, they will be down in the description box below. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with someone who you think might enjoy it. And then maybe they can be your +1 to our The Creatives mixer coming soon to a studio near you in Ottawa. I can't wait for that one.
That'll be good. I'll be there.
Yeah. I want to put this set somewhere and then they just record some rapid fire episode. Even have 2 people that aren't even me involved. Just sit down, hit record, have a conversation.
No, I think, here's me getting too involved and need to give people space. But I think you do one mic, you have the rapid fired questions and people got to do them on their own. So then,
on their own.
Yeah, because then you can still mingle and people just pick up the questions and just give them straight to camera.
Oh, like you have a set of questions and you just go with it.
Yeah. People can do it 2 at a time, but then less pressure on people will do and then it's time. So then it'll be like in and out. They do the questions, then they take off because then it's done.
Oh, that's awesome. It's a good idea. He'll be the first one to do it. But yeah, thank you for listening. Shout out to our editor, Ryan, who's working hard behind the scenes. He's actually going to be on the next episode. I'm excited to chat with him. Plus, there's a bunch of people that I will be reaching out to. I'm usually quite busy. This is a side project, so I'm giving it as much time and effort that I can have the energy for. So I'm going to be reaching out to several people who I've already touched base with about being on the show. And if you're interested, just shoot us a message. We're not stopping anytime soon. The goal is 100 episodes because just triple digits. Why not? But for now, we're just chugging along. We're having a good time. I hope these bring you value. I hope you learn something, and I hope they inspire you to go out and make something. So thank you.
Thanks you for having me.
Thank you for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode, everybody. Bye.